cardinal is outside my window, so it must be time for us to start. So, good morning. Come into this circle. Put your screens in gallery mode if you haven't already, and look at all the faces of those gathered here for worship together this morning. It's a pretty great group from all over the place. I'm so excited to see friends from Tree of Life and friends from my Unitarian Universalist community and friends from Avatar. It's wonderful. Together we'll raise the vibration of this time and space in dedication to the one who is all time and space. I'm Reverend Carrie Ives. I am so excited to be here leading worship with all of you today. A reminder for those who know Tree of Life and a little note for those who don't, that the offertory plate is available on the Tree of Life Temple website, and your offerings are gratefully accepted. TOL Interfaith Temple. Today's service will be learning about and honoring Isis, the Divine Mother, divine feminine goddess of 10,000 names. We know that in the balance of feminine and masculine, that balance is integral to our growth and our life. So as we begin, I'll honor both aspects here. I will light a candle, and if you have a candle at home, you're welcome to join me, and call in both Isis and her counterpart, Osiris. Grab my candle. There we go. I invoke the goddess Isis and the god Osiris, whose attributes are love, beauty, and truth. Holy goddess Isis, mother of all beings, come to our hearts. Grant us thy children love and joy, wisdom and abundance. We offer thee our loving care for all who are born of thee. And now, Linda and Joe will share an opening chant with us. If you know it, feel free to chant along, keeping yourself muted, of course. Thank you, Linda and Joe.
Ishtar, Keretwin, Hecate, Nana, Isis, Artemis, Sophia, Athena, Quatalipe, Aphrodite, Meleke, Astarte, Gaia, Saraswati, Kali, Pele, Pasue, Demeter, Pavati, Hera, Akewa, Diana, Nidapa, Chico, Mekawata, Little Shekina, Morgana, Maya, Izanami, Shakti, Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ishtar, Carey, twin, Hecate, and Nana, Isis, Artemis, Sophia, Athena, Talike, Aphrodite, Melite, Astarte, Gaia, Saraswati, Kali, Pele, Pasue, Demeter, Parvati, Hera, Akewa, Diana, Nideva, Chico, Meko, Atta, Lilith, Shekinah, Morgana, Maya, Isanami, Shakti, ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Isis of myth, Queen of Egypt before becoming goddess. What do we know about Isis from mythology? Isis was revered in ancient Egypt. There are temples devoted to her, like in Philae, and others devoted to other gods, but with Isis as the predominant image. For example, the temple at Abydos, which is dedicated to Osiris, has many beautiful images of Isis on the walls. What we know of her story comes from translations of hieroglyphics and fragments of papyrus, and it is spotty. Different accounts contradict each other, and sometimes accounts are even internally inconsistent. The most well-known and complete version of her story is actually a Greek description by the priest Plutarch. This is the version that most people refer to, and we really don't know how accurate or inaccurate it is in comparison to how the story was known by the ancient Egyptians. It has all of the intrigue of a good soap opera and all the magic, mysticism, and gore of a Grimm's fairy tale. So with all that preamble, I invite you to settle in and hear the story. Isis was part of the creation myth of ancient Egypt. The one god Atum had two children, Shu and Tefnut, the upper atmosphere and lower atmosphere. Shu and Tefnut had two children, Geb, god of the earth, and Nut, goddess of the sky. Nut gave birth to 4 children at once: Isis, Osiris, Nephthys, and Set. Isis and Osiris were sister and brother, and they were said to have fallen in love in the womb as twin souls and were wife and husband in adulthood. Osiris became the first pharaoh and taught the people how to grow grains and brew beer, introduced writing and astronomy, and trained the people to worship the gods. Isis provided medicine and magic incantations, invented the loom, dispensed compassionate justice, and encouraged music and dancing. Together, they stopped the practice of cannibalism and brought civilization to Egypt. Their siblings, Nephthys and Set, were also sister and brother and wife and husband. Set refused to give Nephthys a child. So Nephthys disguised herself as Isis, seduced Osiris, and became pregnant. When the baby was born, Nephthys became worried about the reaction of Set, so she abandoned the child. Isis found out. Rather than rejecting her husband, sister, and the baby, she searched out the baby with the help of dogs. The baby was found and raised by Isis, and became the jackal-headed god Anubis, protector of the gods and guide of the souls of the dead in the underworld. Set was jealous of the power and the love that Osiris had from the people, and plotted to overthrow him. Set knew he wasn't strong enough to fight Osiris in combat, so he secretly took Osiris's measurements. He had a sarcophagus made that was unparalleled in beauty and specific to Osiris's measurements. Set threw a party to show off the sarcophagus. In his boasting, he invited the attendees to lay in the sarcophagus, and if any of them fit it perfectly, they could have it. So all of the attendees tried, but none of them fit. Of course, when Osiris laid in the sarcophagus, it fit perfectly. Quickly, Set's accomplices closed the lid of the sarcophagus on Osiris and sealed it shut, then threw it into the Nile. Isis, who had not been at the party, found out what had happened. She went into mourning and began searching for Osiris, vowing to bring him back. She scoured the banks of the Nile and asked strangers and children if they had seen anything. The children told her they had seen a box floating east. The sarcophagus had landed along the banks of the Mediterranean in Byblos, which is now Lebanon. And in its pure essence, a fantastic tamarisk tree had grown up around it, completely encasing it in the trunk of the tree. The local king had seen this tree and, being amazed by its beauty, had the tree cut down and brought to his palace to be a pillar there. When Isis arrived at Byblos, she did not find the sarcophagus. She sat weeping at the water's edge. Some servant girls from the palace found her there and engaged her in conversation. Isis did not reveal her true nature, but she used her power to beautify their hair and skin in thanks for their camaraderie. When the servants returned to the palace, the queen noticed their beauty and asked to have Isis brought to her. The queen made Isis nursemaid to her young son, the prince, and kept Isis as a guest in the palace. Isis cared for the prince. Each night, she would put the boy into a fire and burn a bit of his mortality off of him, slowly turning him immortal. She herself would turn into a swallow flying around the pillar, lamenting. One evening, the queen witnessed this and gave a great cry. She demanded that Isis stop at once. Isis responded by revealing her true identity. The king asked Isis to forgive them, and she agreed in exchange for the pillar of the tamarisk tree. Request granted, Isis had the pillar cut open and the sarcophagus was revealed. Isis brought the sarcophagus with her on a royal barge heading back to Egypt. Along the way, she removed the lid and, grief-stricken, lay on the body of her husband. She knew for sure then that he was dead. At some point during the journey, Isis transformed herself into a falcon, and flying over Osiris's body, magically enabled Osiris's phallus to become erect and impregnate her. When Isis arrived back in Egypt, she hid in the wilderness of the Delta, knowing that Set would be looking for her. She raised her son Horus there. One night, Set and some of his followers were out hunting, and they came across Osiris's body. In a rage, Set cut Osiris's body up into 14 pieces and scattered them throughout Egypt. Again, Isis went searching for Osiris, this time with her sister Nephthys accompanying her. Together they found all the pieces of Osiris except his phallus, which had been swallowed by a fish. They put him back together as much as they could, and Anubis embalmed him. When Horus came of age, he was ready to avenge his father's death, and he challenged Set. The two battled for several days, neither clearly stronger than the other. Eventually, Horus emerged victorious, but missing one eye. He presented a tied-up Set to his mother, Isis. Isis felt remorse for her brother and set him free. Horus was furious and cut off Isis's head, which was immediately replaced by the head of the cow goddess Hathor. Isis Hathor immediately forgave Horus and magically healed his eye. Horus knew the only way to forgive himself was to offer what was most important to him as an offering to his father. And so he realized that his newly restored eye had to be sacrificed. When the mummy of Osiris received the eye of Horus, he was restored to eternal life as king of the underworld, holding the promise of eternal life and resurrection to all his worshippers. Isis became a universal goddess, mistress of the cosmos, almighty lady of wisdom, the throne of Egypt. Since the Egyptians viewed their gods and goddesses as principles, we can widen back and see the story more broadly. Set, as the principle of chaos, challenges Osiris as civilization. Chaos wins for a time, but Isis, love, fertility, and wisdom, brings forth Horus, hope, as the avenger. And together, hope and wisdom bring the whole thing back into balance. I'd like to share an invocation to Isis that was written by Dion Fortune in her book, Sea Goddess. I am the star that rises from the sea, the twilight sea. I bring men dreams that rule their destiny. I bring the moon tides to the souls of men, the tides that flow and ebb and flow again, that flow and ebb and flow alternately. These are my secret. These belong to me. I am the eternal woman. I am she. The tides of all men's souls belong to me. The tides that flow and ebb and flow again, the secret, silent tides that govern men. These are my secret. These belong to me. Out of my hands he takes his destiny. Touch of my hands bestows serenity. These are the moon tides, these belong to me. Isis in heaven, on earth Persephone, Diana of the moon and Hecate, veiled Isis, Aphrodite from the sea. All these am I, and they are seen in me. The high full moon in the mid-heaven shines clear. I hear the invoking words, hear and appear. Shade El Chai and Ria Bina Gi. I come unto the priest that calleth me. Isis is known as the Great Mother Goddess. She is the goddess of fertility, healing, justice, and magic. Mistress of heaven, Almighty Lady of Wisdom, Mother of all the deities, nature herself. How did her worship spread so far? There is indication that she was worshipped in pre-dynastic times before any written history, as the goddess of the throne before connections with Osiris. When the Greeks went to Egypt, they brought Isis back with them, as well as helping her worship spread throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. There were temples to her in London, Pompeii, and Rome, to name just a few. In Paris, the Church of Notre Dame was likely built at least partially over a shrine to Isis. The Greeks had motivation to incorporate Egyptian deities into their own pantheon, namely to prevent uprising among those they had conquered. And there are many temples to Isis and Serapis. Beyond this, there was a great overlap of Isis with many of the Greek goddesses, and many followers believed them to be the same divine being. Artemis and Isis share many temples, and Artemis and Diana were sometimes considered identical, leading to an identification between Diana and Isis as well. Demeter shared many traits with Isis and was said even by the Greeks to have originated in Egypt. Aphrodite and Isis were worshipped as the same goddess in many places, and both are identified with love and passion. Isis was also connected with Scandinavian and Celtic deities, having particular similarities with Freya. And she has similarities with the Buddhist and Hindu goddesses Kuan Yin, Tara, and Lakshmi. Perhaps most interesting or difficult for those of us with Christian backgrounds, Isis is closely connected with Mary, Mother of Jesus. Many temples of Isis were rededicated to Mary. Images of Isis nursing or holding her son Horus were renamed to be Mary holding Jesus. The titles given to Isis were also passed along to Mary: Seat of Wisdom, Sedes Sapiente; Queen of Heaven, Regina Caeli; Star of the Sea, Stella Maris. Both Isis and Mary were mothers of children conceived divinely. Both are divine mother figures for their worshippers. And the nativities for both Jesus and Horus are celebrated with the winter solstice. Depictions of Isis holding a slain Osiris are very similar to Mary holding Jesus after his crucifixion. And there's also a theory that the period of Lent in Catholicism is derived from Isis's search for Osiris. I was surprised when I traveled to Egypt in 2018 to recognize that the time Mary, Joseph, and Jesus spent as refugees in Egypt is well documented. There are churches or shrines to the family along the Nile following their route. A Christian denomination which is unique to Egypt is Coptic Christianity. And the Coptic Christians, followers, sought shelter from Roman persecution in the temples to Isis and the other ancient gods. One location I was able to visit by chance is called the Virgin's Tree. It is a tree still living in the outskirts of Cairo. The Holy Family stopped for shade under this tree and drank from the well that still exists there. Only recently did I learn that this site is also spiritually significant to the Ammonites, a group that follows ancient Egyptian religious practices. It's called the Tree of Persea, where the god Ra killed the serpent monster Apep. Here's a bit of a story for you. In the sky near Cairo, from April 1968 through 1970, a vision appeared, visible to many, many people. There are thousands of photographs of this. It was the form of a woman with a halo, with lights all around, sometimes holding a child. She appeared above the Coptic church of St. Mary at On, now Zaytun, which was one of the places where Mary rested with the infant Jesus. What's most beautiful about this image to me, this vision, is that Muslims took the woman to be Fatima. When she appeared with an infant, it was Fatima's son, Ali. Christians took her to be Mary with Jesus, and many others recognized Isis and Horus. Another reading I'd like to share with you, this is from the 2nd century Latin writer Lucius Apuleius in his work, The Golden Ass. I am nature, mother of all, ruler of the elements, progenitor of worlds, chief of all deities, mistress of the living, mistress of the dead, the sole manifestation of all goddesses and gods. It is my will that controls the planets of the sky, the helpful winds of the sea, and the grievous silence of the dead. Though revealed by diverse customs and rites and called upon by many names, my omnipotence is respected throughout the world. To the Phrygians of Pessinus, I am mother of all deities. To the Athenians, I am the wise and valiant Athena. To those of the Cyprian Isle, I am Aphrodite, or Venus, born of the foam of the Paphian coast. To those of Crete who use the bow, I am Dictina, Artemis, or Diana. To those of the island of Sicily, I am called Persephone, or Proserpina. To the Eleusinians, I am Mother Demeter, Mother Ceres, or simply Mother of Wheat. Some call upon me as Hera or Juno, Bellona or Hecate. But both of the Ethiopian peoples, those who live in Egypt and those who dwell farther to the east, understand my ancient wisdom more than any others, for they know the ceremonies that are dear to me and call me by my true name, Almighty Isis. I'd like to invite you now into a time of guided meditation. You are welcome to participate and visualize, or just listen and enjoy the sounds. Whatever path you choose, and whatever you experience during this time, is exactly what you are meant to experience. It is perfect for you. So just relax into it. I invite you to come into a posture upright but not stiff. If you're sitting in a chair or on a couch, you might put your feet solidly on the floor. If you're sitting on a cushion, sit up so that the sits bones in your bottom are against the cushion. You can shut your eyes or cast your gaze softly a few feet in front of you. Just listen to the music for a moment. In your mind's eye, picture yourself near a body of water. Where are you? Are you somewhere you know? Are you near the ocean or a lake? Near a stream or a pond? Allow yourself to really feel into this location. The sounds, the sights, the smells. Enjoy your time here by the water. Now, invite the divine feminine to join you. You might see her approaching, or she might just appear. She might be a manifestation that you recognize, or perhaps one you don't, or she might not have any form at all. Be curious. What does she look like? How do you feel in her presence? Let whatever comes next to happen naturally. You might have a conversation. You might go for a walk. Some other interaction. Some gift. Whatever happens is just right. spend some time It's time now to begin moving towards returning home. Thank the Divine Feminine for her visit with you and for any wisdom or gifts she has bestowed upon you. In the same way she came to you, she now leaves your side. You find yourself again alone with the water. Gently now, bring your attention away from the water. Come back to the sounds of the music. Coming back to your body now. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your fingers. Gently shift your body. And as you feel ready, allow your eyes to open. We're just going to take a moment to feel our bodies and integrate back into this space. If you have a journal near you and you'd like to write down your experience, you can go ahead and do that now. Maybe have a sip of coffee or water, or take a nice stretch. Coming back now into our time together. The worship of Isis did not end with the Greeks or Romans. Many people are devoted to her worship even today. People come to find Isis or be found by her in myriad ways. There are numerous books about her and Egyptian mythology, as well as her as mother goddess. There are novels, pieces of music, oracle cards, and healing meditations that honor her. She has been portrayed with wings for the falcon she transformed into and the protector she became. She has association with the snake for the snakes she charmed in another mythology story to help her in saving her son Horus from the sting of a scorpion. Snakes are often used in her rituals and are also a symbol of Isis Sophia, goddess of knowledge. Perhaps the most accessible group of followers of Isis in modern times is the Fellowship of Isis. Based in Ireland, the Fellowship of Isis was founded in 1976 by Olivia Robertson, her brother Lawrence Durden Robertson, and his wife Pamela Robertson. It is now overseen by Cressida Pryor as steward. The Fellowship of Isis honors Isis as Divine Mother, goddess of 10,000 names, and is devoted to promoting a closer communion between the goddess and each follower. The fellowship accepts followers of all religious backgrounds, traditions, races, and genders. There is no denigration of others' beliefs. There's also an honoring of the balance of masculine and feminine divinity, so Osiris and the other gods are welcomed in as well. The overarching belief is in the promotion of love, beauty, and truth. Members include Protestants, Catholics, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, spiritualists, Wiccans, and pagan worshippers of all kinds. And there are temples of Isis in 13 countries around the world listed as being active with the Fellowship of Isis as of 2019. At Clonical Castle, which is the home of the Fellowship of Isis in Ireland, as well as in centers throughout the world, members perform ordinations of priestesses and priests, rites, and mysteries. And the liturgy used has been pieced together from ancient sources, including the pyramid texts, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and Plutarch's version of the Osirian myth, in addition to inspiration channeled by Olivia Robertson herself. The Fellowship of Isis can be easily found online, and their website has a ton of information if anyone is interested. For those wanting to worship as closely as possible to how the ancient Egyptians worshipped, the Ammonite Foundation would be a better fit than the Fellowship of Isis. The Ammonite Foundation, or the Foundation of Amun-Ra, exists under the radar. Membership is generally spread around the Middle East and Egypt, and they have no website, at least none that I could find. As of the early 1990s, they numbered around 27,000 people. The Ammonites are essentially their own culture. After the downfall of the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, who tried to steer the people away from their ancient religious ways, Pharaoh Tutankhamun, King Tut, started the Order of Amun-Ra. About 10,000 Ammonites left Egypt during the reign of Ramses II, taking with them the sacred book of the faith, attempting to avoid the downfall of Egypt. They established settlements in Kadesh, Petra, and Amman, and became nomadic throughout the Middle East. The faith faces massive danger of genocide from Muslims, Arabs, and Jews. Ammonites almost always marry within their faith. They have strict dress and dietary codes. And they are bound by the 42 laws of the saints, known as the negative confessions from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The spiritual leaders of the Ammonites are manifestations of the gods Aset, Isis, and Osar, Osiris. They have stayed hidden for thousands of years and are only recently slowly allowing some knowledge about themselves to be available, as it has been foretold that some true seekers from the West will be wishing to return to the house of the old gods. Even still, there are those who are drawn to the old ways but are turned away or tuned off by the strict codes of the Ammonites. As one example, a man born in San Diego calls himself a Kemetic Reconstructionist, Kemeticism being a revival of ancient Egyptian religion. His spiritual name is Ptahmasu Nofra Ua. He connected with both the Fellowship of Isis and then the Ammonite Foundation. He was embraced by both and began training to become a priest through the Ammonites, which is impressive for a Westerner. However, he found that he had to leave his training when he was taught that homosexuality is seen as unclean and against the 42 laws of the saints within the religion. He now practices as a Kemetic iconographer, and anyone who is into iconography or artwork, his works are absolutely amazing. So how have I connected to Isis? I find it particularly fascinating when someone has an experience of the divine that is not in their faith tradition or belief structure. It's much easier to believe that a Catholic has a vision of the Virgin Mary than to understand a Buddhist having a vision of an Egyptian god. Yet that is what happened to me. In 2011, less than a week out from my double lung transplant, I was recovering in the hospital with the help of strong painkillers. One night after everyone had left, I had a vision. It was a desert scene. There was a bonfire with music and people dancing around it. They had shawls around their shoulders and they were holding them out to the sides as they danced. Standing to the side was a tall person with a dog head. He made no noise but made eye contact with me. Then it all vanished. I knew immediately that this was a spiritual vision. Perhaps it was drug-induced, but it was incredibly clear and detailed, and it did not feel like something obviously from my own subconscious. My first guess was that it was a connection with my organ donor. So after getting out of the hospital, I started researching Native American traditions. I was guessing the dog-headed person was Coyote and that the location was the Southwest United States. There was a pattern I remembered from the shawls, so I tried to find that in my research. I found out that Coyote is a trickster, and images of him don't match who I saw. So that seemed like a dead end. After a year after my transplant, I connected with my donor's family and found out they have absolutely no connection with the Southwest or with Native Americans. So that seemed like another dead end. Still, I felt that discerning a meaning for the vision was important, even though I had no sense of where it was coming from. One day I happened to go to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. I looked in the Native American arts, including pottery and textiles, and I found kind of a loose connection with one of the ancient Native American tribes. Then I went around the corner and immediately connected with a statue. It was the dog-headed person from my vision. I had no doubt it was the same being. It was Anubis, the son of Osiris and Nephthys, who was raised by Isis. He takes charge of the recently dead in the underworld, leading them to the next stage of their path. As one book states, his presence is quiet but deeply powerful, which certainly matches what I experienced. Even as I was writing this service, another puzzle piece came together for me around this vision. Knowing who Anubis was did not explain to me about the shawl dancers. I had a realization. The way they were holding their shawls, arms outstretched, with the shawl under their arms, is a mimicry of a bird, or perhaps of a goddess with wings, like this statue of Isis. 6 years later, 2017, I was going through a difficult time in my marriage. Counseling that was leading to separation and eventually divorce. I truly believe the divine wants to be with each of us and will present God's self to us as we can best accept in whatever moment we are in. And in that time, I was feeling very distant from a male version of God. In the course of some intense personal growth work with a spiritual coach, I became intensely aware of the presence of Isis. More than that, I became aware that I myself am a manifestation of the divine feminine, as are all of the ladies here, and of Isis herself. Less than a year later, in 2018, I had the opportunity to travel to Egypt. Blending spiritual traditions, I was fascinated by Isis and also surprised and intrigued to learn about the churches and grottos honoring the path of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus as refugees. My partner Tiffany and I were able to travel down the Nile and visit various ancient temples, including many dedicated to Isis. I was going through a period of discernment, and Isis clearly spoke to me through the hieroglyphs in various different sites. Back in Cairo, I wanted to visit one last ancient Egyptian site. During that drive, only by luck, I was introduced to the Virgin's tree. I could feel the power in that space, but only recently do I realize it's revered by both Christians and the Ammonites. Last year, I had the blessing of opening a new small building on our property, which is my office for spiritual work. I dedicated it as a temple to Isis, and that's where I'm sitting right now. And this year I made it official by becoming a member of the Fellowship of Isis. I can feel the presence of Isis guiding me. She is loving as a mother and strong as a warrior, and she encourages me to live my life as fully and authentically as possible. And she wants that for you as well. One day, shortly after dedicating my temple, a tune came into my head, which became a chant. It has become an almost daily practice for me, attuning me to the energy of Isis in my body and spirit. And I'd like to share it with you. Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh. All that you ask of me, this I will be. All that you ask of me, Isis with thee. All that you ask of me, now to eternity. All that you ask of me, Isis I'll be. Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh. All that you want of me, this I will be. All that you want of me, Isis with thee. All that you want of me, now to eternity. All that you want of me, Isis I'll be. Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh. Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh. All that you call me, this I will be. All that you call me, Isis with thee. All that you call me, now to eternity. All that you call me, Isis I'll be. Isis, oh Isis, oh Isis, oh. 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 I'll share a closing prayer, and then Linda and Joe have another chant for us. In the names of Isis and Osiris, may all beings be blessed, spirits and animals, humans, birds and reptiles, fishes, insects, plants, rainforests, the earth, and all her sacred elements. May it be so. Amen. Blessed be.
Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. We all come from the goddess, and to her her we shall return like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean. My sister started Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. My sister started Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. We all come from a goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop